disconnect the battery, or you have to pretty much keep the memory. Sometimes it takes up to 20 minutes. It could take up to an hour.
Whenever we're taking, there was, newer cars come in and they have parasitic drain that we're testing for, and we connect our amp meter in series with the battery and the cable we took off the battery, and we're going to be seeing, we're not supposed to see more than 50 milliamps leaving that battery. If you see more than 50 milliamps leaving it, it'll kill the battery. So what we have to do is, to make sure that we're not getting tricked or confused by anything, is we connect our meter so that it's drawing the current off the battery, and we leave it connected and we walk away. And we walk away for, an hour. Like a late model car, that's like 2008, 9, 10, 11 on up. Because there's a whole lot of modules and stuff that have to charge things up in there. And whenever they're still charging things up, if you start hacking around in there looking for where your draw is, you may waste a bunch of time. We had this 2010 Mustang that came up out here, and she was wanting to know if she had a parasitic drain and all that. But I noticed the battery looked kind of crummy. Of course, the car was starting and all, but she said if you let it sit in the garage, it wouldn't start. So we hooked the meter up and walked away. When we came back, the parasitic drain was way down low. And so we, I ran a test on the battery after that, and found out that she needed a battery. But I don't want to throw a battery on it because of a parasitic drain, because that's what happens at the car lot. The car lot, they actually wind up with batteries going dead because there's on some of the Chryslers and all, and some of these other ones, there's a fuse that's supposed to be pulled if you're going to leave it parked on the lot for 3 weeks, because it's going to kill the battery on a lot of the newer cars. Of course, the newest ones, they've kind of done away with that. But some of the Jeeps and Chryslers used to have an IOD fuse. You might even see it in the fuse panel, ignition off draw. And that one's supposed to be pulled out. Some of them had a little yellow carrier where you're supposed to pull it up so that the fuses are disengaged and only push it down. Like if you got it in storage or something, like if you're going overseas and you leave it out there, or maybe at the airport, you're going to be gone for 2 or 3 weeks, you want to pull that out. Most people don't even know about it, and they come back, the battery's dead, and here they need a jump or whatever. But this is Electrical Systems Test 5. When a light is dimmer than normal, it means the bulb is wearing out. Is that true or false?
Not always.
Have you ever seen a bulb that was getting ready to wear out change and have a different intensity? What did it look like?
Seems like it gets brighter.
Bingo! Listen to him. I've seen that. You've seen a bulb that gets brighter, and you're thinking, wow, this bulb's brighter than it's ever been. That means it's right on the cusp of burning out. There are some molecular deposits that can paint the inside of the glass on a bulb silver color. Have you ever seen that? Change out a bulb and the inside of the bulb be a silverish color, like the filament, leached off some stuff. But basically, it's going to be a falsie there. These are old questions. The most common LED color is green.
False.
That's false. Usually it'll be red. Of course, you'll have them all kinds of colors now. LEDs, let's just go ahead and say that LEDs do not have filaments. How much, have you seen these LED light bulbs you put in your house? You know how long they supposedly last? Did you read the package? 22 years. If you got a light bulb that you screw in there, those last 22 years. Now they cost about $8. But we put one in there the other day. My wife says, this thing puts out a lot of light, but it doesn't even get hot. I said, I know. That's a good thing, Sealed beam bulbs contain the filament, reflector, and lens in one unit. Sealed beam bulbs would be like the bulbs on the older ones that you change like the one on that board up there. It's got a parabolic reflector in there. It's got these little ground lenses and all that kind of thing. So that's going to be a Truby. If the tail light fuse is burned out, a typical headlight switch has 3 positions. How many of you have not handled a headlight switch? How many of you have not ever turned on headlights? Listen to him. He's holding his hand up, saying he's never turned on headlights. What are the 3 positions?
Right, different park lights?
Off, on, and park lights. And if you add the turning it to turn on the headlights, and you got something else, right? Headlight switches have evolved over the years to the point to where, in a lot of cases, the headlight switch itself is not even carrying the load of the lights. It will be requesting a relay or talking to the body computer. Well, like for instance, if you're talking about lights, this 2006 Impala that belongs to the girl that works over there at the you know, for Tim. She had a problem with her car wouldn't come out of park. All right, somebody comes to you and they tell you, my car won't come out of park, what's the first thing you're thinking?
Park neutral, safety switch.
Well, what do you have to do on just about every car you drive nowadays to get it out of park?
Press park.
Okay, so what's the first thing I'm gonna do? I'm gonna walk around behind it
See if
or
the brake lights are
see if the
going.
brake lights are working. Got me? All right, so when you mash the brake on that 2006 Impala, the current that's turning on the brake lights doesn't go through the stoplight switch. The stoplight switch simply sends a signal to the body computer, and the body computer turns on the lights. You know, it's basically a lighting control module. The Crown Victoria has got a lighting control module on it. If you might notice that this blue Crown Victoria we got out here has no turn signal flasher on it. It's got some electronics and a lighting control module that operate the turn signals for you. And so that's just an interesting thing. They got all the lights are being controlled by electronic boxes on a lot of these vehicles now. On some of the 2000 or so series Ford Windstars and all this kind of stuff, and that Freestar bunch and all that, they'll have a rear electronic control module and a front electronic control module. And the rear electronic control module handles all the lights on the back of it, and the front one handles all the lights on the front. But you can talk to both of them with a scan tool. Pretty cool, really. The brightness of, if the tail light fuse is burned out, the panel lights are also out.
False.
That's actually true, and you know why they do that? They actually have the panel lights being fed off of that circuit, so if you burn out your tail lights, your panel lights go dark and you know there's a problem.
Oh, yes, for like if your headlight goes out, you know, there's.
If your
the
tail
turn
lights
signal.
are out, your
Well,
tail lights, just your
what
tail.
about the turn signal? Because if your turn signal, or if your light goes out and your headlight goes out, and if you click your turn signal, it'll just blink really, really, really fast.
Yeah, it does that because, it does that on the ones that have an electronic flasher. If it's got one of those old round can type flashers, it doesn't do that. Sometimes it won't flash at all.
Mine would just stay solid.
Yeah.
When my headlight went out, it just stayed on. Like,
Your headlight went out, you mean? or-
Yeah, when I turned the headlights on, and my headlight went out, like the turn signal light would just be on.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're talking about, yeah.
Solid.
Yeah, sometimes that's a grounding issue there. Sometimes it's going backfeed. And some of them are kind of wired up that way. But number 5, which one are you after?
4 or 5.
4 and 5 would be true and true. 7 is false. The brightness of the panel lights is controlled by the rheostat. Well, it depends on the car, basically. Nowadays, the brightness of the panel lights is controlled by the body computer, and whatnot. On some of your Camaros, they had a power transistor on a heat sink. And the power transistor on that heat sink was receiving a signal from this thumb wheel. And the thumb wheel, whenever the more of a ground is supplied to the base of that power transistor, the more power would go to the lights. Well, the problem is you had resistance there at the power transistor. It had to be mounted on a heat sink, and those things used to burn out all the time. They're kind of aggravating to get to, too. So there's a bunch of different ways that works. You can't really go by whatever. The ambient light sensor supplies normal power to the lights for nighttime driving. What do you think? That's if you've got automatic headlights. Let me ask you this. Do you have an ambient light sensor on the white Chevrolet pickup truck that Brian parked yesterday? The one, the CT-152?
What, did you see the dome in the top dash?
No, I'm talking, I mean the
I'm talking about the little.
ambient light sensor.
dome.
What is it for?
It's when you see outside, if it gets dark or if it's there's no light outside, then it turns on the headlights.
No.
Okay, well, that's what I thought it was for.
No, have you noticed on these Chevrolet pickups, you see them driving along, they got these daytime running lights on?
Mine has some daytime running lights as well.
Exactly. That's required in Canada, by the way, and GM was kind of friendly to putting that on all the cars. Well, the daytime running lights, if they will not come on that Chevrolet pickup unless you back out into the sun, put it in drive, release your park brake, and have your foot on the brake, or be driving it. For about 45 seconds after you bid it out in the sunlight, it turns on those daytime running lights. And that's what that sensor's for on that one. It turns on the daytime running lights.
Isn't that what I was saying?
No, what you were saying was when it gets dark, the headlights come on.
Oh,
The daytime running lights are not so you can see. The daytime running lights are so other people can see you.
mm-hmm.
You know, that's one of the reasons it's the law in Canada.
What makes the headlights turn on there?
It's something similar to that, if they've got that function, you know what I mean? And, but these Chevy pickups have got all kinds of, the newer ones, like the new body style starting in 2000, they got all that in their 99. Okay, disadvantage of heavy-duty flashers at the flash rate will not change if one or more bulbs are burned out. And yeah, that's true, and that's the old can-type flasher, which is, I used to have one in here somewhere. I do not even know where that is now. Backup lights and hazard warning lights are included in the daytime running lights, and that's not true at all. You know, when you're looking at our vehicle inspection sheets that we have out here, you've got a particular line that says reflectors. Remember that? And the reflector is typically part of the light, and so that somebody's driving along, they can see you. Have you ever noticed that on some of your doors, when you open your door, you'll leave a light on the door, or you'll have a reflector out there, so that if you open the door, and the car can tell your door's open when they're coming along the road. One time, my uncle got pulled over in Fort Worth. He was a car salesman, but he got pulled over in Fort Worth by a police officer, and the traffic was pretty heavy and going by close by, and the police officer says, get out of the car and come back here because the traffic's heavy. And so when he opened the door, a car knocked the door off the car, an oncoming car. And he got a ticket for opening his door in front of an oncoming car. And the cop told him to get out of the car. He was supposed to look and check and make sure. But who's used to stopping on the freeway? You know what I mean? He was used to driving, and it's just a bad thing all the way around. Which of the following is not a major component of a headlight circuit? Dimmer switch, dome light, front parking light, license plate light.
License plate light.
Everybody like that answer?
Yeah.
What about the dome light? Is the dome light part of a headlight circuit? Which color is not used as an instrument panel warning light?
Green.
Is it yellow?
Is it yellow?
Yellow, actually, because amber is what color the check engine light is. There was this girl one time that I heard about that had a Jeep, I guess, a Jeep Liberty or something, or some kind of a vehicle. And she noticed that the light came on that looked like a radiator. And so she was going to go and make sure that her radiator was full. And so she went out there and she opened the hood, and she took the, because they were really close together, she took the oil filler cap off and filled the engine up with water. I'm serious, this is not a joke. But they were real close together. I mean, they were like 8 inches apart on that particular vehicle, and she just took the wrong one off. And another reason why people need to stay out from under the hood if they hadn't had training or something.
You sure it's not? I mean, it says which color is not used as an instrument panel warning light.
Mm-hmm. Yellow, amber is what the check engine light is. It's not yellow. You've never seen a yellow instrument panel warning light because there's not one.
Oh, so it's yellow?
Yeah.
Because when I put it in four-wheel drive, and it says four-wheel drive, it lights up. Not really yellow, it's actually amber.
Yeah, that's what you would call
It
it.
looks yellow to me. But
Yeah, I know. I mean, there's a fine line between yellow and amber. Now, how many of you have
amber
driven
has more
a,
of an orange
how
tone.
many of you have driven a vehicle from the 1960s that when you cranked it up, there was a light on the dash that said cold?
You okay? You sure?
Yeah, Brian's the oldest one in here besides me. But anyway,
Does that have to do with that?
because the cars are old. If you're old, the car's old, and you're more likely to drive an old car if you're old. See what I'm saying? So basically, well, actually, you're younger than my oldest son. But anyway, what happens is that light would come on and say cold. It would be blue or green. And you'd be freezing to death out there in the car, wanting some heat, and you'd crank it up, and that light would come on and say cold, and you would want to look at it and say, I know it's cold. You don't have to tell me it's cold. But it would go off when the engine warmed up. They wanted you to know when the engine was warm so that you would know that, for some reason. I don't know why they did that, but I had a car like that,
So 11 is C.
Number 11 is actually C, and number 12 is D. When diagnosing lighting problems, remember the bulbs are connected in parallel, sequence, series, or parallel and series. That's parallel. Okay, I've got a little little bug here.
But according to my friend, they're connected in series.
Seriously?
Remember I was telling you about that?
Seriously? Who's that?
The kid I told you what the Volkswagen whose headlights were burned, or one of them was out, and I said it was probably a fuse. No, it's not a fuse, because both of them would go out if it was.
You're not going to blow out. I mean, think about that. You're not going to blow both fuses. Sometimes you can figure things out, Why would they fix it so when you blow one fuse, all your headlights go away?
Exactly.
Now, they used to have a circuit breaker in some of the headlight switches, the older headlight switches, and that circuit breaker, when it would get weak, would start blinking the headlights off and on. But they didn't go off and stay off.
Since you mentioned the thing with the panel lights and the tail lights, I don't know if I told you, but when I was moving from St. Pete back up here, the van that they rented me, the tail lights didn't work, but I had no idea at the time. Neither did the panel lights.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, so that
Yeah,
totally makes
big
sense.
bingo, yeah, see, you got it there, you've been there firsthand, right? What about one of these situations that I used to run into at the dealership sometime when somebody come over there, because I was the electrical guru, and they says, and you may have heard me mention this before, but I always thought it was funny. They would say, when I mash the brake, the panel lights come on. And where do I start looking for this? And mashing the brake and the panel lights come on.
Brown?
And I would say, well, you know, maybe, but why don't you pull all the bulbs out? Huh? So they pull all the bulbs out and it didn't happen. I said, now put the bulbs back in one at a time until it starts happening again. You got a bad bulb. Because the two filaments are touching on the inside and it's back feeding. I mean, that's basically how that works, you know. The color of the ABS indicator light is, excuse me, the color of the brake indicator light is what?
Good.
What do you think, y'all? You like that?
Red.
That's B. The color of ABS indicator light is?
Amber.
It's amber. Now, I had this 24-volt pipe loader I was working on one time, and we were having issues. We needed to put lights on this pipe loader. A big old pipe loader. You couldn't roll the tire through that door. It was a big giant machine. And they said, you need to put some lights on this thing so at night they'll have lights on it, you know, because this thing ran 24/7 down there. And so I said, I need some 24-volt lights, like big headlights. And the guy at the parts house said, we don't have nothing like that. And he said, you know, it's just too hard to get them, and we're not fooling with that. And but then he told me, and I don't know why I didn't think about this myself. He says, why don't you just take some 12-volt ones and wire them up in series? And I did, and they worked just fine. But if you lose one, you lose them both. You see, that's the problem with that. Number 1 on the electrical system says 6. A non-reversing permanent magnet motor drives a windshield washer pump. Now, that is true. So better put true down there, but the problem with that is some windshield washer, well, that's windshield washer pump, never mind. Windshield wiper motors, some of them back up whenever they're parking, not all of them, but some of them do. So you're not gonna, but wait a minute, let me back up again. On some vehicles, they'll have a single windshield washer motor, but they'll have a pump on it that's made so that it'll feed the back windshield if it spins one way and the front windshield if it spins another. Go ahead and put true, but I could shoot that one full of holes. Motor circuits are powered only when the ignition switch is on. Well, false. What motor circuits can you? What can you operate with the ignition switch off on a lot of vehicles?
Fuel pump. Fuel pump.
No, with the key off. Key off it in your hand. Kids can play with it while you're not in the car.
Windows,
No.
trunk.
Door
Lights.
locks.
Door locks are one thing. What else?
Some vehicles.
Which are the wipers?
No, the wipers won't work
Some
either.
vehicles are the brake lights.
Yeah, the lights, headlights.
Well, the brake lights will on most vehicles, but on some vehicles they won't. A lot of them, like a Ford 500, unless you get the key on, brake lights don't work. What about the power mirrors and the power seats? You can play with those if you run the battery down, can't you? There was a police car that came in there one day, and they said that there was some stuff that wasn't working on it. I looked under the hood, and it was nearly a new police car, and I touched the circuit breaker that was feeding the stuff that wasn't working, and ooh, gosh, that's hot. And what had happened was this yo-yo that they put in the back seat had put his handcuffed hands up under there, gone under the front seat, and he'd taken these two wires out of the connector some kind of a way that was supposed to go to the power seat if it had power seats, which that one didn't, and he tied those wires together to try to burn something up in the police car. Now all it did was make a circuit breaker hot and burn my finger, you know. But anyway, I told that police officer, the thing was tied together in the back. Like, that was that guy all this morning. I ought to go jap slap that rascal. Get him out of that lockup and slap him around. I don't think he did, but anyway. Most windshield wiper circuits have, that wasn't you that did that, was it, bro? But most windshield wiper circuits have two brushes designed for two-speed operation.
Yes.
Well, that's actually a false C, but like I say, so many of these questions are problematic because a lot of windshield wipers will have an extra brush, you know, for a different speed. and all that thing. But express down feature allows the windshield wiper blades to travel to their normal park position at the base of the windshield before the motor stops. That's false too. If express down, I'm thinking about windows. Most small engines are serviced by replacement only. Oh, small engines. They're talking about motors, small motors, not small engines. I guess that's some sort of translation issue or something. There was a guy one time that sent me an email through my website, and he was using the translation software apparently because he was from some other country. And he says, I'm really sort of scared because they're working on my car and they took the rudder off. Is it normal for them to have to do that to work on the airbag system or something? And I was thinking, the rudder. He's doing translation. He's talking about the steering wheel and the rudder, you know. Well, that's just real interesting how that does that if there's no word that works. The electronic controller, stepper motor, solenoid operated clutch, and drum gear and strap are components of electronic/vacuum cruise control system. No, they're electronic cruise control system and not vacuum on that stuff. There are 4 possible modes of operation for both types of cruise control. That's true. Failure to tap up or failure to tap down are the 2 most common problems with cruise control systems. That's false. Failure to set. Now let me hit you with this. If you've got one that's got set, accelerate, and resume, and you hit the set button and it won't set, but you can hit the resume button and it will set.
I have that problem sometimes.
All right, that means you got switch issues.
What's number 5?
Oh, number five is actually going to be true. Most small motors is what that should say, not small engines. That's crazy. Most airbag systems use 2 crash sensors. Most of them nowadays will use, they got multiple crash sensors because they got curtain airbags and everything else, but they were talking about when they just in the front there. How many of you saw the video whenever I lit the airbag off in the Lexus? It's on YouTube. Y'all were here, weren't you? Weren't you here when I did that?
Broke the window.
Yeah, I busted the window and just went all the way back to the seat. It was just nasty and really loud and violent and everything. Makes you not want to be sitting there. Who would want to sit there while I lit the airbag off? That would be
Me. Can I?
yes, break your nose. Supplemental restraint systems are also called seat belt restraints. You actually have, a lot of people don't know it, but there's actually a little thing down there in the inertial reel part of your seat belt that basically lights off like a little firecracker whenever you have a wreck, and it locks the seat belt, automatically and keeps you from going forward and all that. So, I've had to replace those before. Oh, and by the way, it's not a good idea to take an airbag and measure and see how many ohms the airbag is.
So the last 2 true?
Huh?
They go off.
You talking about number 10?
9 and 10.
9 and 10.
9 and 10 are both, or one's 10, 9's true, 10's false. But it won't light off the airbag because I've actually measured them, but but when you think about what's at stake, it's not a good idea to do that because your meter's shooting a little current through there, and if there's enough current coming from your meter going through that airbag, it's all going to go boom, and you spend $1,000. What's up with that? You don't want to go there. Now I will tell you this. I ran into a situation with this thing. This right here is off one of the Crown Victorias. See the yellow connector? It's got this little firecracker in here, and it threw me a code for this thing. And so it was a college car, and so I was down to the point of where I was saying I need to know if this little thing here is any good or not. And I know it's like really expensive to buy this reel with all this stuff on it and everything. And so I got over here out of the way and I hooked up so I could measure the ohms, and nothing happened. But I mean, even if this lights off, it's not like an airbag blowing up in your face. You're going to hear something go boom, and then this is going to lock. But it had 2 ohms of resistance. You can take an old airbag component like this and solder a 2 ohm resistor in there. And when you're working on airbags, disconnect your airbag, put the 2 ohm resistor in there, and it thinks there's an airbag there. That way you can troubleshoot all your circuits without having something blow up your face. Believe it or not, airbags have blown up in people's faces while they were troubleshooting. That's why you're supposed to have the battery get blown. But I mean, if you have to have everything fired up, there's a 2 ohm resistor needs to go in there. Let me see. When diagnosing direct current motors, you should use a voltmeter or test light. Use voltage drop, measure voltage drop from motor to ground connection. Check the fuse in the circuit breaker. All of the above. Do what's quick and easy first, though. The electronic vacuum operated system and electronic system are 2 types of cruise control systems. How many of you have heard this urban legend stuff about some state trooper talking to somebody saying, if you're using your cruise control in the rain, it'll start the wheel spinning and you go out of control and you shall surely die? Have you ever heard that before? There used to be something on email. You heard that before? You seen it on email before?
Luckily,
It come,
people don't send me those emails. 'Cause
Well,
I'm friends with people who are.
why is that hooey? I mean, I'm not saying that everybody ought to sit there cruise whenever it's on a slick rainy road, but which wheels is the cruise control paying attention to? It's paying attention to the drive wheels. The wheels that are being driven, right? And what his deal was, if the tires start spinning and it's watching the front wheels, it'll just keep spinning them faster and faster and faster, and then you'll crash and burn. You know, I don't know if I've ever seen one like that, but my friend Mark Shipes was driving this Jeep Cherokee one time. And on a Jeep Cherokee, I don't know if you've driven one of those things lately, but if you're in the power curve on that thing, you ain't got the brakes to stop it. And so he was saying the cruise control is set on this one, it won't cancel. And so he drove it and he tried to cancel it. He drove it, he tried to cancel it, he drove it. And about the 5th time he drove it, he just got all, you know, relaxed and everything. He stood on the brake, and he's the guy that was jumping up and down whenever the tempo caught fire after he's going to clean the injectors. You know, he can't think clearly when a crisis happens, even though he knows martial arts and everything and he's good at it. Something happens that he needs to do something about. He can't, you know, he freezes up. So he's coming on the traffic circle and he mashes the brakes and the cruise doesn't cancel. And the cruise control says, my goodness, we're slowing down. I need to apply more throttle. So he starts applying more throttle. And he's got this big strong leg and he's getting down on the brake and he's froze up and he can't get his hands off the wheel and he's standing on the brake as hard as he can, and this 4-liter has gone directly into its 177 foot-pounds of torque and it's burning out all over the road down there. He finally got it shut down, but he says, man, I was doing a burnout and there was nothing I could do. He said it's the most terrifying situation he'd ever been in, you know. Unless you've ever been in one that tried to run away like that, there's no feeling like it, you know. If you saw Capricorn 1, whenever he was driving that Mustang that they had jacked around with, all he had was steering and speed. You know, that's just one of those kind of scary stuff. Let me see. Number 11 was all of the above. For safety reasons, to operate the cruise control, the vehicle must be traveling above 25, usually sometimes 30, it depends on the system. And most airbag systems, what inflates the airbag? Nitrogen gas, and it's basically got, you know, a bunch of other smoking hot stuff coming out of that squib. Who knows what a squib is? You ever heard that word? It's a good Scrabble word. Squib.
Squib, I've heard that before.
Squib. You hear it in the military? Squib. Firecracker. That's what a squib is a firecracker.
What was 12?
What was what?
12.
Oh, 12? You're way behind. Number 12 is Charlie.